My name is Laura and I am the Asia Pacific Innovation Lead at Clifford Chance. I'm actually an independent management consultant and I specialize in helping companies evolve and innovate, and primarily through identifying new opportunities, looking at new business models, products and services that they can take to market. I think like most people in innovation, I don't really have a simple backstory. In the interest of time, because this is a short slot, I'm going to keep it brief. So my USP is really that I have a mix of technology, law, and client side experience and understanding. So I would never claim to be an expert in any one of those industries, but I speak the language of each world. So what I can do is help to foster cross-industry teamwork, collaboration, and innovation. So that's my specialty. I've been working with Clifford Chance since 2017, when I was initially hired to work on their applied solutions business, which I'll come back to a little bit later. And I've been really fortunate to work on several things since then, but I think perhaps my current project is the most exciting, which is Create 65. So I'm going to share my screen now to tell you a little bit more about it. All right, so Create 65 is Clifford Chance's first legal innovation lab, and it's based in Singapore. And a big part of what the lab does is it focuses on collaborating with organizations outside of Clifford Chance. So we work very closely with clients, technology vendors, startups, universities, and to solve common industry challenges. We also do quite a lot of research, both internally and externally, to understand what the needs are of lawyers and of our clients. So we're quite research focused. And then the final major element to what we do is around engaging lawyers. So if you think of who the typical lawyer is and the education that they have had, they wouldn't tend to describe themselves as technical or maybe feel always confident around technology. So we do a lot of work to sort of break down those fears and help them understand why technology is going to be increasingly important to their role, and to really share what their clients are asking them for. So Create 65 is just one part of a very large innovation framework at Clifford Chance, which is relatively speaking a very large law firm. So some of the other parts of the firm that are relevant are Clifford Chance Applied Solutions, which I mentioned. This is a standalone software as a service business that was established a couple of years ago, and it develops technology products and sells them direct to the firm's clients, which is quite a unique thing for a law firm to have launched. And then we also have Best Delivery, which is a more established team of people that are focused on process improvement, efficiency, and technology. I think we hear a lot about why innovation is important and why we should innovate, but we don't often hear as much about how we can do it. So today I thought it would be useful to share some practical steps for innovation and some lessons that we've learned. Now, bear in mind that these steps may be more relevant to you depending on the maturity of the company you're at. The firm I'm working with is quite a mature firm. It's been around for a very long time. Perhaps if you're a Spotify or you're in the K-pop world, some of your techniques might be a little bit different. It's hard to compete with that as the first presentation, but I will try my best. Okay, before I get on to these practical steps, I do want to share a couple of things that are influencing why Clifford Chance is innovating and how it's innovating. So the first is that the clients, which is you guys, are asking for evidence that lawyers are working efficiently. So many of the firm's clients are facing their own technological transformation. They are rapidly changing and they're facing increased risks due to tech. So they need their law firms to react to that. And that's a big driver for what we do. With people, everybody wants more flexible working, although I think 2020 has maybe served up a little bit more flexible working than most of us needed. But law firms are typically quite traditional places. So it's really important, if a law firm wants to attract the best talent and keep attracting that best talent, they need to make sure they have alternative ways of working in place. Competitors. So law firms have been quite dominant for a very long time, but the past decade or so has seen the rise of what are sometimes described as alternative legal service providers. And I think calling them that now isn't really fair. These companies are doing very well, and they're a real they present real competition for established law firms. So that's a huge incentive to look at innovation. And finally, and I think very relevant to this particular call, is the environment. So we're based in Singapore, and the government here is very active in encouraging innovation and encouraging the legal tech and technology community and environment to develop. So we've been very lucky to be based here and to benefit from that ecosystem. And there are a couple of organizations, if you're in the legal space, that you should check out if you don't know them already, which is FLIP, the Future Law Innovation Program. There's GLIDE, Singapore's national accelerator, and lots of other interesting projects. So find me after if you want to talk more on that. So thinking about the practical side, again, because this session is short, I'm going to focus more on the planning side of innovation as opposed to the execution. There's a myth that I hear often, and I think it's widely held, which is that innovation is sort of wild and unpredictable, and that teams need endless freedom. And the reality is that that's not really a recipe for success. So if you don't have a very clear, well-communicated strategy and plan, it's very difficult for your innovation activities to actually have an impact on the business. So your innovation activities might be sort of disparate, or they may overlap or even conflict with goals that some of the business areas might hold. So this can lead to a bit of disillusionment, disappointment with your stakeholders, and then it can be really hard to win them back because you've set off in the wrong direction. So I think this myth is one that I quite like to bust where possible. Okay, so thinking now about some steps you can take, and this, bear in mind, is from 10,000 feet. Again, because of time, we can't go super detailed. So what are some of the practical things that you can do? The very first step to successful innovation is understanding where the company, the organization is going as a whole. What is the bigger vision and the strategy? Is it to enter new markets? Is it to grow existing client bases? Is it to develop new business units or new products? Innovation is not separate to this. Innovation complements this vision. And if you don't understand this vision, it's very difficult for your innovation to be effective. Now, some of you at more mature companies will know that it's not always easy to understand where the organization is going. And it might not be clearly defined. There might not be a document somewhere. It may be that you have to encourage this work to happen first before you can start thinking about an innovation strategy. That's the first thing to bear in mind. Assuming you do have this vision and this bigger mission for the firm, then you can start thinking about your innovation objectives. What are you trying to achieve with innovation? Now, this also sounds very simple, but many, many companies fail here. So I'll share an example from the legal industry, which is we're seeing increasing innovation across different types of firms in this industry. And imagine I'm a law firm, I'm not doing anything yet. I'm not innovating in any way. And I look out and say, oh, I need to have a piece of this. Everyone's doing it. It seems important. I think I'll have an idea competition, or let's do a hackathon. That seems good. There's loads of those. If you run that successfully, yes, you may get some engagement. There's some excitement. But if you haven't tied that to a bigger goal, a bigger mission, the impact that you're going to have on the business is extremely limited. So if the ideas have nowhere to go, or you haven't scoped it because you don't know if the ideas should focus on efficiency versus new products, you're going to be sort of lost at sea. And so it's very important to figure out what you're trying to achieve with innovation. Then you need to figure out the how you're going to do it. So I promised I wouldn't go into too much detail here, but I couldn't leave it out, of course. So some of the questions you're going to consider are, how are you going to innovate? What resources are you going to allocate? Do you need to make changes within your team or your company, depending on your size, to make innovation possible? And, you know, an important question as well is the type of innovation. So lots of us think that this is sort of a wild, sexy world, and it's at the frontier of tech, and it's Elon Musk's newly announced Neuralink. Whereas the reality is that a lot of innovation is routine or incremental. So it's not majorly disruptive. And this is where a lot of the profits are generated through innovation. So you need to pick carefully and decide what funding and resources you want to allocate to these different types And again, I'm going to be like a broken record, tie this back to the overall vision of where the company is going. I have a couple of lessons to share from this particular stage, given where we are in our lab's existence. So the first I would say is that it's very difficult to choose the right thing to do. If you do your research well in the market, within your company, you're going to find a lot of ideas and a lot of problems that need to be solved. And if you're new to the innovation scene, your team is probably not that large. You don't have endless capacity to solve everything. So how are you going to pick? You're not going to get it right all the time. So you need to make sure that you're going to have a portfolio of projects so that you can kill some of them off if they're not working well. And you also need to make sure that you communicate that just because you take something on doesn't mean it's going to be followed through or that it's going to be successful. So this can be a real change depending on your industry in how people are working, and you've got to really set people's expectations. The second lesson that we've learned is around setting milestones and setting some control over projects. So often at a more mature company or in the corporate environment, we're used to looking at something and saying, how long will it take me to fix this? Or how much will it cost? So I need to move to a new document storage system. You can't have to do that. That's not really innovation. That's got to be finished. There's no experimentation there. So you're used to looking at that and scoping a full piece of work. If you follow that approach with more experimental lab type activities, what's going to happen is your timelines are going to be huge. Your budgets are going to just expand and become unwieldy. So in a kind of an environment of experimentation, you've got to control. And what we have learned that works for us is 12-week horizons. So you could call them 12-week sprints if you want. So our projects will have an initial 12 weeks, an initial injection of funding, and then we'll reflect. And if we think that the KPIs, the objectives have been hit, we'll decide if we should continue. If not, we'll kill it off. And that's not always easy for the people working on those projects. So again, it takes a lot of discipline. So you've executed on your plan. Some things have gone well, some things have not gone so well. It's really important that you reflect, and you have to be quite ruthless at this point. You can't continue doing things that aren't working. So you need to examine your projects closely, and then you need to evolve and decide, okay, which direction should we pursue? Where does our strength lie? And again, I'm sorry, a broken record, but you need to tie this back to the vision of the company, which may also be changing. So there's a constant check back. Are we as an innovation team still aligned with what the business wants and where the business is going? And the communication part of this is really critical and not easy to do. And I think every innovation manager would say that they could always do this better. And I know that we could do this better. A common complaint is that innovation is a black box. So if you're a funder or a senior stakeholder, the money goes into a lab, goes somewhere, you can't see what's happening. The world is very different and you don't really have visibility or control. And that's dangerous for your stakeholder relationships. You have to make sure that they are taken with you and that they understand how you're working and what's going to happen next. So it's kind of a constant cycle, a constant evolutionary cycle. So if I'm going to leave you with a takeaway, I think it's clear that I am very passionate about tying to the overall vision. I think part of the reason for my passion is that I've worked on many projects with different clients over the years, and I've seen how difficult it is to impact the wider business. I've seen that you can, in the right team, with the right culture, the right skills, make magic happen in isolation. And then when it comes to exporting, it's difficult for that to be accepted by the wider business or to be scaled. So I think that if you can counteract that risk up front as much as possible, then that can really help you be successful. Thank you very much. And I'd like to say as well, a very big congratulations to you guys for launching DLF here in Singapore. We are very excited to welcome you to the community, and thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. I'm happy to be a part of it.